luxury hospitality, the gap between a forgettable stay and a lifelong guest often comes down to one thing: whether the hotel owned the experience before the guest even arrived. Today, we explore how to turn every pre-arrival touchpoint into a personalized invitation, not a transaction. Welcome to our session, Mastering the Ultra Luxury Guest Journey. You're watching the International Luxury Hotel Association webinar series. We unite a global ecosystem of over 1 million professionals to cut through the noise and architect the future of luxury hospitality. Today's session is brought to you by Plusgrade. Now I'd like to hand the floor over to our moderator for today, Barak Hershowitz, President of the International Luxury Hotel Association, to introduce our expert panel and get us started.
Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining the International Luxury Hotel Association's webinar series. I'm Barak Hershowitz, President of the International Luxury Hotel Association. Today we're exploring how luxury resorts combine high-touch service with the right digital moments, which helps their guests shape their journey from booking to arrival. Today, there's three things that we'll get into. First, how room upgrades can feel like invitations and not transactions. Secondly, why guest-led personalization creates both delight and revenue. And third, where the line is between automated efficiency and elevated personal service. I think that's something that's really, really important, so we'll get into all of that today. So let me introduce my guests on today's webinar. I'm joined today by Robert and Dan, who are working at the intersection of luxury hospitality and guest-led experience design. So first, Robert Charlock is the Director of Revenue Management at One and Only Moonlight Basin. I'll let Robert do a little quick intro on Blue Sky and the One and Only.
Absolutely. So again, my name is Robert Charlock. Big Sky, Montana is really one of the biggest mountain destinations in the United States. It's growing extremely fast. It's probably the biggest and fastest growing mountain destination in North America, if not the fastest growing mountain destination in the world. So that's really exciting for us here in Big Sky, Montana. A couple words about why One and Only chose Montana. One and Only as a brand has always been intentional about its destinations. The portfolio does not chase, volume or trends. It looks for places with strong identity, depth, and the ability to deliver experiences that feel singular rather than replicated. So that's a really big point for One and Only. And then just another little piece about One and Only Moonlight Basin. One and Only Moonlight Basin, we're located across 240 acres in a private neighborhood called Moonlight Basin, which is up past the resort a little bit in Big Sky. This is One and Only's first alpine resort in the United States. Moonlight Basin represents an evolution of the brand. The same principles that define One and Only globally are here. So deeply personalized service, a strong sense of place, and experiences designed around the guest rather than a rigid program.
Fantastic. Well, very exciting, and we're excited to have you on board and tell us a little bit more about the new property for One and Only. For those that are not familiar with One and Only, it was a brand that was started by Saul Kerzner many years ago. I just mentioned this because I worked for him in the when I was in my late 20s in South Africa, where he's originally from, with his Sun International brand. And so I remember when they launched the One and Only Cape Town, and it's always kind of set itself above, set a very, very high bar in luxury hospitality. So we're very excited to have Robert here today. And now I'd like to introduce Dan Heise from, he's the VP of Business Development for Hospitality Upselling at Plusgrade. Also a preferred partner of the ILHA, so we're very excited to have Dan here today as well. Dan, do you want to give us a quick intro on yourself as well in Plusgrade?
I will, and Brock, great to see you, and Robert, I'm so glad to be part of this webinar with you as well. So thanks for the time and inviting us in. And it's probably fair to say that I've got a tough act to follow, after Robert talking about One and Only Moonlight Basin. So I'm going to talk about software a little bit and Plusgrade, but great to be here. Like Plusgrade, as I think both of you obviously know, we've been focused on like elevating traveler experiences, above and beyond the norm. It fits in really quite well with the One and Only philosophy. Robert, as you said, you want guest experiences that are truly, restorative and deeply personal, and that's where Plusgrade supports your goals perfectly, as well as One and Only Cape Town and the 20 other properties under Kerzner globally. And I guess, so briefly on Plusgrade, so for the past 16 years, since 2009, we've been delivering personalized invitations to upgrade across air, cruise, rail, hospitality, and hospitality. We work with over 300 of the world's leading travel brands, from Virgin Atlantic, Lufthansa, Etihad, Cathay. We work with most of the world's cruise lines like Cunard and Royal Caribbean and MSC and Azamara and Norwegian, Silversea. We work with passenger rail like Amtrak in North America, Eurostar here in London to Paris to Amsterdam. And of course, we're in thousands upon thousands of hotels, and love our relationship with Kerzner and the One and Only brand and Atlantis and Cyro and Rare Finds. But our experience with enticing passengers and guests to upgrade their stay or their flight at precisely the right moments with the right message, and as Robert would appreciate, at the right price, does deliver meaningful incremental revenue, as well as awesome guest experiences in a fully white labeled approach. So this is the upselling side of Plusgrade. Quickly, I'll talk about our loyalty currency retailing side, because that's the second half of Plusgrade, where we deliver the loyalty currency merchandising for primarily air and hospitality partners, including Marriott and Hilton and IHG and Hyatt and Wyndham and GHA and Accor, to name a few. And the cool thing with this is that we're actually marrying the upselling technology together with our loyalty currency merchandising capabilities to allow those guests with miles to burn or points to redeem to upgrade their flights or upgrade their stays with points or miles. But alas, I know Robert and One and Only don't have a loyalty currency program in place. So today we're going to focus on all things guest engagement and incremental revenue for the luxury guest. So that's a bit about us.
Fantastic. Great. Well, wonderful. And there's a lot of brands that you work with, and many of them, are partners with the ILHA, or involved with the ILHA. So it's very exciting to have you with us. So let's kick it off with the pre-arrival window, right? So what does, and I'm going to put this to the two of you, and we'll keep it kind of natural, however whoever wants to take it first, but let's talk about, what does the ultra luxury guest actually want between the booking and the arrival?
Great. I'll go ahead and
I think you go. People want to hear from you, Robert, so go for it.
absolutely. I think between booking and arrival, what the ultra luxury guest actually wants is to be able to design their own stay, right? They don't want to just simply arrive and start designing their stay from there. So I think it's pretty important that the window between booking and arrival becomes one of the most valuable moments in the entire guest journey. So the pre-arrival phase here at One and Only, we really think of it as a relationship building moment, not an administrative one. It's where our trust is established with the guests, where their preferences are understood, and where the expectations are aligned. One of the biggest shifts that we have seen is that control is now becoming the new luxury. Guests want an agency. They want options and choices when they arrive and before they arrive, right? They want to decide what matters to them and when. So they don't really want surprises when they are, arrive on the front drive. And all of this really changes how we think about personalization. There's a difference between trying to anticipate every guest's need and giving the guest tools to express what they want. True luxury now lies within listening well, offering thoughtful choices, and respecting how involved or uninvolved the guest wants to be.
Yeah,
I was going to
couldn't agree
say,
more.
I couldn't agree more. Barak, go ahead. Sorry, jumping in.
Yeah, no. I said I couldn't agree more. I think that since since the internet sort of flipped, our association was formed because of this change, right? So since travel,
Absolutely.
back in the day, brochure travel and travel agents pretty much doing every booking and handling the experience for the guests. Are there guests to use travel agents? Certainly, but the guests they're playing this role. But they still need they need the expertise of the property, right? And that's where you guys step in. So amazing, very exciting. Dan, I'd love to get your thoughts as well on this.
Yeah, and I was just going to agree with everything Robert said and yourself as well. But to be fair, like we as Robert said, you got to truly listen to your guests, and we truly listen to our partners' perspectives on just how an automated or an upselling program can entice and engage guests in an appropriate on brand manner. It's based upon the data we collect over the decades, the machine learning and AI inherent in our platform, which carries with it 16 years of understanding the guest psychology that changes throughout, from booking, looking at booking to pre-arrival to check-in to during stay. But that's across air, cruise, rail, hospitality. So we know what traveler intent is throughout the entire journey. And I guess to add to what Robert said, like I hear quite a bit because I talk to luxury hotels. One and always the best, but talk to a lot of luxury hoteliers every day of the week. And I hear that pre-arrival window, as Robert said, is not used effectively, but it's a perfect opportunity to do that. And it's not because guests don't want to engage at that time; they absolutely do. They want most luxury properties still treat like the time between booking and arrival as perhaps more logistical, with confirmations, beautiful confirmations, and arrival details, and online check-in and digital keys. And our data shows that guests do engage when they receive a relevant, well-timed, and personalized invitation to upgrade, with the key term being relevant and well-timed. Like if we know it's a single guest traveling to One and Only Moonlight Basin, we're not going to necessarily send them an invitation to upgrade to a family room. Or if it's a family, coming in, we'll do child-friendly offers, experiences, and that side of it. So it has to be personalized, it has to be at the right time. And then Robert, as you said, like secondly, like ultra luxury guests, they don't want to be surprised. Like ultra luxury guests, you might be traveling once, twice, 3 times a year with family. It's special time. They're going to spend a fair amount, on that luxury holiday and vacation, and they don't want surprises, just as you said. So the ability to secure a better room or a preferred view or a specific, very cool experience that you offer before arrival. It feels empowering and not transactional. And that's everything we design into the system around timing and framing and language and pricing and the ability of guests to place an offer. And of course, adherence to One and Only high brand standards, just to allow us to capture the guest, at the perfect time. And I guess third in my thinking, it's the pre-arrival window is where brand affinity can be won or encouraged or supported or perhaps lost. And first impressions, of course, no longer are just at the point of looking and booking. They carry on throughout the journey, including a moment receives your first email or text or WhatsApp message after they've booked with you, or how a luxury property shows up in that window. It truly signals whether it's a truly personalized relationship, because luxury guests who feel seen before they arrive, they arrive differently and more empowered and excited.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think you have an advantage with Plus Grade in that you work with most of the major cruise lines, if not all of them, and they were the ones that were the innovators in this pre-arrival space. I think it took the hotel side of the business a long time to catch up with it. That the cruise lines have always owned the guest. One thing we know about cruises is that that entire stay is going to be with that cruise line, with that ship. And I think properties like One and Only as well, especially in Montana, that's a destination trip, right? They're not passing through on a business trip. And so that they're very excited about that trip. It's something they're looking forward to. And you own their stay. And because you own their stay, you own the pre-arrival as well. And I think, again, the cruise lines were the innovators in this space. They took the opportunity very early to get involved in the pre-arrival space. And I think now the hotels are catching up. So it's great that you have that expertise for working with them.
And Barack, you're absolutely right. Spot on with that, because the work that we do with a cruise ship is complex. A hotel is complex, but a cruise ship, it sounds like you know a wee bit about the cruise industry. But a cruise ship might have, where One and Only Moonlight Basin may have, I don't know, Robert, would you have 12, 15 different room types or room categories, or maybe more?
Yep, about 12. Yep.
12. Okay, so I remember. Like a cruise ship might have 20, 30, 40, 50 different types, staterooms and levels, and it's so complex. And when we work with, the high-end luxury cruise ships, cruise lines from, Silversea or Azamara, it's about the guest experience, and the length of stay in a hotel is the same, Barack, as like the length of a cruise, 4 days, 7 days. The other hotel companies have cruise ships that you can cruise for a year, right? But that upgrade to a higher cabin, it's emotional, and you're going to book that cruise maybe 6 months, a year out. But when you get closer into your to your departure, that's when things get exciting, and that's when you have more money to spend, because you've already maybe paid off your credit card from the initial booking, and now all you're doing is thinking about what am I going to do at One and Only Moonlight Basin next week when I get on property. Yeah,
I know, it's very exciting. You gave me an idea, which I will side note that we do another thing with cruise, because we've been involved with some of the great cruise lines, Virgin and Ritz-Carlton, as you mentioned, Royal Caribbean, who's got the Celebrity and Azamara, all these brands, and they've taught us a lot over the years. We've had, Telmac Galvin spoke at our conference several times, Arnold Donald, these guys from the cruise lines have kind of shown us a little bit about sometimes where they innovate that can help our industry. So definitely another entire discussion that we could get into, a rabbit hole we can go down. So let's talk
about Moonlight Basin.
Yeah. So let's talk about upgrade as an invitation, right? So, how do you offer a room upgrade that feels like an invitation and not a sales pitch?
Yeah, I think one of the most misunderstood moments in the guest journey is the room upgrade, right? In luxury hospitality, it's the offer itself that really is the issue. It's always how that offer is framed, how it changes the guest perception of that upgrade. And as Dan mentioned, it's really an emotional moment, which is why we work with Plus Grade, really heavily. We meet with them quite often to adjust our approach. And one of the things we use with Plus Grade is a bid feature that we use. So it allows the guest to choose the price that they're going to give for that upgrade, right? And I say choose, but that's in quotations here because it is set by a min and max bounds, but it is something that we believe gives the guest control over the upgrade, right? Where they're saying, actually, I don't want to pay that full $1,000 for the upgrade. I'm going to offer 500 and see if I get it. So that's one big piece. Another big piece is that our guests really respond to upgrades when they feel exclusive and aligned with our brand's promises. They really shut down when something feels transactional or opportunistic, especially in the ultra luxury space. So again, as you mentioned, how do we make it feel like an invitation? It's really all about the timing, our tone, and the channel that they book through that really matters the most. If an upgrade is offered too early, too late, or through the wrong voice, it can really feel impersonal. When it's done well, the guest feels like they're being quietly invited to do something special. Most importantly, in our guest journey, the upgrade experience is treated as an extension of our brand, not a departure from it. It reflects the same values of respect, clarity, and choice that give the guest the experience that they want throughout their stay, and what guests and ultra luxury guests in particular respond to the most is not the deal itself, but the feeling that the offer was designed for them specifically.
Fantastic. Dan, do you want to add anything?
If I can add anything, I don't want to repeat what Robert said because everything he said is spot on again. But I guess we totally agree. Like the language and the framing and the message, when it's done right and on brand and feels natural, it truly delivers. And you want to exceed the guest expectations at that point in time, pre-arrival or at check-in or during their stay. And we design our upgrade offers to feel like a privilege, like in a nice way. And it's all around the specific language used, like for one and only Moonlight Basin, a message that says "Wake up to your exclusive Mountain View room," over Moonlight Basin will convert better than a price-led message, which works for some brands. For only $2,000 a night, you can upgrade your room. Softer works in giving the guest a vision of that view works to engage them with a message. And then we also invest pretty heavily in helping properties craft offers that feel personal, and we're using data and using our technology to do that. So as Robert said, it feels personal and not promotional. In tone and timing, your point there, Robert, is exactly right. And I guess exclusivity does matter again for ultra luxury guests, but also kind of everybody wants to feel special, right? So, but guests who they'll respond to scarcity and selectivity, and this is available to a small number of guests before arrival, lands differently than like an upgrade now message. And of course, it has to feel native to the brand, as Robert said. So it's a deliberate design principle with Plusgrade. So we're built to be fully white labeled and brand configured, and every property sets their own tone of voice and imagery and channel preferences and language, of course, of the guest. It will be automatic, in the guest language of choice. And a guest that one and only should hear from one and only, and not from some upselling system. That's not the way we operate.
Thanks. That's a very, very, very good point, Dan. Robert, you as well. You brought up, both of you, a very valid point, and I think this is something that, if I look back at our years of, when I was in operations at luxury safari lodges and these very retreat oriented places, we always said that like a room, and I think this is really something that could get translated to I think that as a whole our system of hotels globally can learn a little bit about what upgrading rooms are. You both brought the point that the guest shouldn't feel like it's something that they're going to get. If they don't take it, they're getting less. And I think that this is really important. We always said, I was at a place called Bushman's Kloof, which is a Relais and Chateau Safari Lodge in South Africa, and it was very exclusive. But yet it didn't matter if you were in the largest suite or just we didn't have such things as a regular villa, but a villa. I'm sure it's the same as one and only, but whatever room you chose to stay in, the experience that you got at our property was the same for everybody, meaning like one person did not feel like they were a VIP over a different person. A room upgrade should never feel like you're going from a non-VIP to a VIP. It's something that it's a choice that you make to have a bigger room or a bit more space or a better view. And that's something that costs more. Same that if you sit down and you order a bottle of wine and you order a very expensive bottle of wine, or you order one that's not as expensive, you're still getting top-notch service with that wine. You're still getting a top-notch environment. And I think you both touched on that point. It's really important for the guests to never feel like they're not a VIP if they don't get an upgrade. An upgrade is something that's going to add to their experience, but it's not going to take away if they don't. So I think that is really a great point that you both made.
Robert, can I, Robert, unless you have something to say, I just want to
go ahead, please.
Like it's, and Robert, you brought it up, like we have, guests can make upgrades and experiences through the system, or they can place an offer, as Robert said, and it's very soft, and it's, the spread itself is chosen by revenue management systems, or Robert. But if an ultra luxury guest plans one holiday per year for 10 days with his or her family, and they're like, I want that, top suite. I'm just going to buy it because this is going to be the best trip of this year, if not my life. Whereas other guests, Barak, as you said, like if I'm happy in the room I'm in, or the suite I'm in, or the cabin or lodge I'm in, but I say, oh boy, that would surprise my family or my husband or my wife. So I'm going to place a little offer there. And if I get it, awesome. If not, I'm happy in the room I'm in. And that's one thing that Plusgrade's learned, again, across air, cruise, rail, and hotels, that our upgrade offers give the guest a choice, and ultra luxury, high net worth individuals on down love the ability to have a choice.
Yeah, and I think that the offer is amazing, because in my experience, no matter how wealthy your guest is, they still love a deal. Everyone wants to pay, if it's possible to pay a little less for something, you pay a little less for it. You feel, so amazing, wonderful. So let's talk about guest-led personalization. So what changes when the guest, as you mentioned, you're putting the guest in control of how they can elevate their stay, right? So you're giving them more control. What changes when the guest what changes when the guest, let's say, is in control of how and when they elevate their stay?
I think when guests are given control over how and when they enhance their stay, something really shifts for them emotionally. It shifts from being upsold something to an active choice. And that's really important for our guests. There's a powerful psychological effect in securing your preferred experiences early. Whether it's a specific room, early arrival, or a particular experience, guests feel a sense of confidence and satisfaction knowing when things are set exactly the way they want them, right? And there's a really quiet, quote unquote, win in this moment. And I think that's really, really important for the guest. Guest-driven upgrades also unlock revenues that come from delight rather than pressure, right? When guests choose enhancements on their own terms, they attach positive emotions to that decision. And I think that's really, really important, because that also carries into their stay and into future loyalty with not only One and Only or Virgin Voyages or wherever, with Plusgrade as a whole too. So with Plusgrade in particular, we're actually expanding beyond just traditional upgrades. We're moving into things like early check-in, late checkout, and then also we're moving into offering experiences, whether that's a bottle of wine in the room waiting for you, or a guided hike with our staff through the mountains of Big Sky. So I think that these, and again, I think you both touched on it a little earlier, they're not presented as much must-haves, but as possibilities. Right. Just things to enhance their stay, because as Barak mentioned, it's not about giving one guest one thing over another guest. It's about providing that great experience for all guests as a whole. I think also this approach really frees up our on-property team, which is really important. When these key decisions are made pre-arrival, our hosts on site, which each individual guest gets their own hosts, or a host set to a set number of guests. They're no longer negotiating their logistics on site, which is really important. They're able to focus on presence, storytelling, and emotional connection rather than the transactions.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, and obviously it really does. It's like, I've come from the days still when everything was done through brochure and travel agents. So you had to rely, you put it in somebody else's hands, but they had to go to these places and research them and understand what's available and all of that. And then there was this big gap where people were booking their own trips, but they just had no, they're busy. And then all of a sudden their trip comes up. And did they remember that you have all these things at your property? No. So then they arrive, and by then it's like, I wish I had kind of planned that ahead of time. So I think it frees up your team, but then also it does really help them kind of when they have time, plan a little bit of their trip and add on some experiences that maybe they didn't know that were being offered. Even just, I'm assuming things like transfers and all that kind of stuff, where the hotel is stepping in a little bit and playing the role of the concierge / travel agent as well. And, having worked through them, they're always, it's not always, I mean, we call it upsells, but it's also, those are things that people would have normally purchased in the past through their travel agent, and there's no one doing that for them now. So now you have the property stepping and saying, hey, we know what's around here. These are things we can do for you, not just at our property, but you may want to go do this. We highly recommend this. You need a transfer, all these things. So it's fantastic. It really does make it very, very helpful both for your team and for the guest. So where does automation belong? Like, let's talk about where that kind of stops. So where does automation belong? And like, we're talking about luxury service, right? Obviously, is ILHA and One and Only. So where does it stop? Like we're kind of talking about where it's involved. Where does that kind of stop?
Yeah. So for us, we agree that automation definitely belongs in luxury hospitality. It helps the guests design their stay, as we've mentioned before. Tools like PlusGrade help make it more predictable and help with upgrades and timing and all that great stuff. But the really big thing and where it stops for us is where the guest's itinerary is handed off to our three-pronged front office team, right? So we have three prongs. We have the connectivity team, which is our like pre-arrival, helps you design your itinerary, and that's where like kind of PlusGrade kind of hands off to connectivity. They have a set itinerary with some things, and then we have the front desk and our hosts. So the host again is essentially your dedicated person throughout your stay that helps you do everything. So what I think is really, really important here is that human judgment, empathy, and flexibility are really irreplaceable, especially when the plans change or emotions are involved, right? So that's really important to us. And then also we meet the guests on the channels that they prefer, whether it's phone, text, email, messaging, kind of as Dan mentioned earlier. And all of our automation is designed to sound like our property, not like a platform. If it does not feel like it's on brand or on voice, then it doesn't belong in the pre-arrival process. So.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think that if somebody feels there's a human behind something, they're fine with it, right? Communication is really just two people understanding each other, right? So whenever we talk about communication, if their message is coming through and you're using tools to make that message clearer and more helpful, I think the automation is perfect. But as you said, they need to never feel like they've been shifted off to AI, that there's a person behind this. So to your point, if you're using the channels that they prefer and at some point there's a handoff or when they need it, like, something changes and they need to speak to a person, they feel like there's a person, the brand sounds like it's a person behind it or managing it, then absolutely, I agree completely.
Yeah, and I would add, like, everything you said is again on point. And again, the ultra luxury guest, as you said before, Barak, trip of a lifetime or trip of the year or trip of the quarter, they're too busy. And if it comes like a Friday before a 10-day holiday and they haven't planned anything for their family, it's like, oh, so having the right message at the right time, automated, so that the team at One and Only Moonlight Basin is confident in, okay, we're delivering the right message with the right personalized offer to this guest coming in. Also frees the team at the hotel up, where there's less stress. The guest comes, with a more emotional attachment to the property and to their stay, and the One and Only Moonlight Basin team, the hosts and concierges and etc., they know what the guest was interested in. They know what they want to, how they want to spend their week. So you're delivering better guest service that way, through technology and through automation. So that would be.
Yeah, I mean, I remember a number of years ago, and maybe this wouldn't apply necessarily at this property, or maybe it would, but I remember we were talking about upgrades, was, a number of years ago, where we were just talking about how useful they are, in addition to the fact that their guests are obviously very excited to be able to upgrade. And we're so used to it now, I think, too, with airlines and things like this, that it's kind of like we're almost, I wouldn't say expecting it, but like there's certain flights you're like, am I going to get a business class upgrade opportunity here? Because I'm going to take it. So let's get going with this. But also, I think that there's, I remember a property that a resort was using it for. So they would, let's say they had a number of suites, like 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom suites that were just not being sold. So they would look and say, okay, well, we've got a family, right? We've got like the parents in the one room and the kids in the other room, and say to them, hey, you know what? You have 2 rooms. Why don't we upgrade you for a little bit to a suite? Now we've freed up 2 rooms we can sell pretty quickly, right? And our suite, we're getting a little extra money for it rather than it sitting around. So there's just so much opportunity in that, which is great.
Yeah.
So much. And it's as opposed to comping upgrades, which of course, based on the service level of the hotel or loyalty tier of the guest in certain properties. But as opposed to comping upgrades, exactly, get a little bit more, satisfy the guests, and then free up your 2 other rooms for sale.
Right.
And it's high margin, like it's very high margin.
Right. I think also just these kind of systems, like with Plusgrade, and that it also takes a little bit of our industry, because of our turnover naturally in hospitality, management turnover, staff turnover, having a system that is handled by somebody that's outside of the operation can actually also help us a lot, because it's just, if there's a change of management, or, you don't necessarily have to retrain an entire team, right? You've got the system is still there, even though the people that are at the property might change. So those kind of things are really keep a consistent guest experience as well, without having to like constantly train people and things on it. So I have another question for you, which is, what does a truly integrated pre-arrival strategy look like at a top place like One? I mean, not in my experience, One and Only really sets the bar. There's only a handful of like really, really ultra luxury brand properties out there that set the bar exceptionally high. And so while we have you on here, what does a truly integrated pre-arrival strategy look like at a world-class resort like yours?
Yeah. So in my mind, a truly integrated pre-arrival strategy connects not only sales, reservations, and revenue, but also the guest experience, our marketing team, operations, and the brand as a whole. It really starts with alignment here at One and Only Moonlight Basin. I think one of the biggest things that we work on is the actual booking experience itself, right? So we coordinate seasonal website flips every few months, just to make sure that we're reflecting winter the right way, that we're reflecting summer the right way. And what guests see on our website is what they're offered, and what the experience are all aligned to the same narrative. Once a booking's made, connectivity really takes the lead in curating a detailed itinerary designed around each guest's interests and pace. This may include, dining at one of our 3 world-class restaurants, whether it's The Landing, Wildwood, or Akira Back. We also would encourage them to have a drink at our hidden whiskey shack called the Moon Shack in deep in the woods of Big Sky, Montana. We also have a world-class observatory on campus, where you can look at the stars with an astronomy professor, which is amazing. You can do hiking on property, cross-country skiing. You can take our private gondola over to the resort to do downhill skiing. We offer fly fishing, spa treatments, and then we can also organize, your off-campus experiences, such as horseback riding or snowmobiling through Yellowstone National Park, because we're just right there. We're about an hour away from Yellowstone National Park, which is, honestly, you couldn't pick a better location here in Big Sky. So once that itinerary is finalized, though, we share it with the on-property hosts prior to their arrival, and that really helps create operational clarity and continuity needed to deliver a truly seamless experience overall. The preparation allows for a one-of-a-kind check-in process as well, where the guest is not only welcomed on the front drive when they arrive, the host also guides them through a branding ceremony where they, brand their own piece of wood, whether it's with an initial or a symbol or, something that they can take home with them, which is really nice. And then they're also offered a welcome drink and a hot towel before they're escorted directly to their room for their accommodations. And this really allows the stay to unfold naturally and without like a lot of formality. So that's really important to us here. And I think if you're really just starting to build this, the first thing to get right is the ownership of the pre-arrival process. Someone has to be accountable for it from end to end. From there, success should be not only measured in the incremental revenue that you gain, but in guest satisfaction, your repeat visitation, and how clearly teams understand what the guest wants, right? The properties that do this well have a few things in common. They respect the guest agency. They invest in their pre-arrival process, whether it's through automation or data collection, and they design technology to support the people that run the operation, not to replace them.
I couldn't agree more. It's amazing how there are a lot of very good hotels around the world that just don't, when I go in, I realize they just don't own the guest experience. They don't even know why they're there. They don't ask why they're there. They don't know why they're coming. They just, here's your room, here's your key, help yourself. And I think that if you feel like the hotel is, hey, you're coming to stay with us, and there's this communication, hey, while you're here, we have these things for you as well, and oh, by the way, we have a suite that's available if you want to upgrade, or we have this, and then it connects into your on arrival team, that's your hosts that are now connecting them, but have the information that they need so that there's no walk in from the street and disconnect, right? There's somebody that knows what's going on. They feel like you own their trip, you own their stay, and I think that makes the person feel special. I think people just want to feel like they're an important person in that stay. They're the center of that story, right? And if any true luxury hotel can do, like the best hotels in the world, like yours, can do that, then that's, it's not the ones that have the most technology and the most touch points. It's really the ones where the guest feels like the entire journey was designed around them and for them from the time that they booked to the time that they arrived to the time that they left. And, so I just wanted to thank you both, Robert and Dan, for, joining us here on this International Luxury Hotel Association webinar series. Hopefully we'll have you come to our Inspire Luxury Hospitality Conference. Our next one is in Orlando at the JW Marriott Bonnet Creek. We're very excited about that. And I will have to come out and definitely visit you sometime in Montana. I will bring my bear spray with me.
Please do.
Just kidding. But very exciting. And I think what like luxury safari lodges did to like remote parts of Africa that people never thought of going, and then just suddenly put them into one of the best luxury experiences. To hear One and Only is in Montana, just opening this like true luxury experience. It's very exciting, and it's when you open with something that's really setting the standard so high, it's great for the state and the tourism, and just to understand, people are going to always associate it with, the observatory thing I absolutely love. Big sky, stars, right? And now you have astronomy lessons. That is just so perfect. So again, thank you both for this amazing conversation. Thank you to Plus Grade just for being either, as I mentioned, their preferred partner of ILHA, and we're just so excited to continue to work with you guys. For those that are watching, if you found this discussion valuable, please feel free to share the recording. You can also find other recordings of ours and past webinars we've done on ilha.org under the Discover tab. So thank you both. It was wonderful having you.